first project that I worked on was in Friedrich's new scheme on the north and south entry were the so-called victory arches, which to symbolize the victory, you know, the laurel wreath was the device that Friedrich proposed using, and he had it suspended from the top of the victory arches with a kind of an architectural suspension thing, and to me it looked like a chandelier hanging from the ceiling, and I don't think he was too happy with it, so he asked me to come up with a way to suspend the victory wreath. There's a church in Rome in Trastevere called Santa Maria in Trastevere that had in a side chapel a wreath supported by 4 angels, one in each corner, and I thought, well, yeah, we need something animate to hold this up, not just an architectural device, but something, you know, people could identify with. But obviously it's not going to be angels in a civic memorial, and well, the obvious choice was the American eagle. So I proposed this baldacchino, putting the eagles on 4 columns that kind of creates a space inside a larger space, although the space of the victory arch wasn't large by any means. It's probably about 20 feet square, and the baldacchino was about 18 feet square, so it's a very tight space that you go through to enter the memorial, and I think people, I hope, respond to that feeling of, you know, you're entering some place that's special. It's not just a subway stop that you're going through, and it took a couple of years to refine it and make it work. Because it was a bit of an engineering problem too, having the eagles support this 5,000-pound wreath, but making it look like they're not supporting it, making it look like it's floating in air. That was the first big project, and then there were a lot of architectural elements that, well, if you want to call them ornament, that I worked on. The idea of the rope motif, which symbolized the bonding of the nation during World War II, which hadn't happened before and not after, and certainly not since. Well, the flagpole base, even the drain grates that have some iconography from World War II. My first thought was the procession around the building museum, which obviously was influenced by the procession on the Parthenon, and the idea, well, what would it represent, became a big issue. Like, World War II is such a vast worldwide undertaking. How are you going to kind of compress it into these 12 panels on one side, which we decided, you know, well, the whole memorial was organized in 2 halves to leave the center axis free, and obviously one half became the Atlantic front and the other half the Pacific front. So we had an opportunity to represent the Atlantic front in 12 panels and vice versa for the Pacific front. The transformation of America caused by our involvement in the war ought to be the theme of these, because that would include the home front, not just battle scenes from those 2 theaters. We were doing a lot of research at the National Archives, which is only a couple of miles from here, so it really made it quite easy to delve into these thousands of photos, which were done for the Office of War Information during the war. The panels became composites of stuff that we found, although there's some, like this one here, which is almost a literal recreation of a photo. The home front. Agriculture was, or got a boost out of the Depression, I assume, because we had to feed not only our troops, but it seemed like the rest of the world at a certain point. And this panel here tries to show one of the transformations was women doing men's jobs, besides the obvious Rosie the Riveter and other jobs in industry, that they were taking over the farm work. But what really gave us a huge boost was I was contacted by a man who had a swing band and was also a World War II reenactor, which I didn't know existed at that point. And he said, "Do you need some help on uniforms and equipment?" And I said, "Absolutely," because we had no way of getting things except maybe going to Hollywood. And I checked that out, and their prices were just astronomical to rent this kind of stuff. But anyway, he and his buddies in the World War II reenactor community would come here, and we would photograph them after we had the approval of the Fine Arts Commission for the sketches, and do 6 at a time, and then do the bas-reliefs, and then send those off to the foundry and bring the reenactors back and take 6 more panels, photograph them, 3 or 4 days of work. And they knew which uniforms went with which equipment, and this nose cone on the B-17 and didn't exist in 1941 with that uniform, and blah, blah, blah. So it saved us from a lot of really dumb mistakes. Not 100%, as I found out since, but from vets, but good enough.